Hi, my name is Chassidy and I live in Savannah, and here is my climate story. So I never really thought of myself as a climate refugee until about 2016 when Hurricane Matthew came around. And it wasn't a one-off event. Hurricane Matthew really was the first of three consecutive hurricanes that came to the coastal Georgia area. That was followed by Irma in 2017 and Dorian in 2018. We hear a lot of stories about, climate change, sea level rising, coastal erosion, terms that just kind of, are kind of like talking points, it seemed, until they become realities. And when Matthew happened, which was the first time in the 19 years I've lived in coastal Georgia that I had to evacuate, that I absolutely had to evacuate. That was my first scare. Taking your belongings, taking what's most precious to you, hitting the road and not knowing what you're coming back to. Scary, scary, scary business. So I evacuated for Hurricane Matthew, 2016, left with some friends, came back, a troubling road back in, because there's something called contraflow where, all roads in an evacuation lead out. And it's a very strategic, rightfully so, return kind of intake for folks who did leave. And in that case, a lot of people left. So you come back into town, you arrive back in Savannah, and a lot of power outages, a lot of trees down. And this is inland, we like to give ourselves these kind of protective covenants, like, oh, you're on a bluff, or oh, you're inland. And like, this couldn't happen to me, until suddenly you realize, like, on a bluff and inland, you are suddenly still impacted with power outages, tree limbs down, things that make navigating back home practically impossible. And it takes, it's a community effort. It's a community effort with, a lot of the agencies that work in climate mitigation. Yeah, I think of SEMA, Chatham Emergency Management Assistance, FEMA, but it's a lot of on the ground effort. All that said, Matthew was the first time, and I thought it was a one-off kind of thing. In Savannah, we like to say, these are like once in a lifetime kind of things. Then came Irma, right on the hill. These are all in hurricane season too. So October, almost the same time. It was like an anniversary. It was so eerie how the dates almost kind of overlapped. And we leave for a second time. I remember that time I had an event I was working on with the organization I was with, and it was an outside event. And again, you're kind of like, you have no idea what you're coming back to. Can you pull this off? Can you do it? That aside, when you think about the damage to infrastructure, some things you can kind of go and sweep up, and some things you just can't. And I think it was Irma that kind of had me going, like, wait a minute, they keep saying, come up with a top 10 list, come up with, things you have to have. What is your survival kit? What's in it? What does it look like? Who's in it? How? All these questions are suddenly paramount, because here we are again, same situation, same urgency, and it's urgent. So Irma happened, and not as impactful as Matthew. The following year, Dorian happens again. And this is pretty rare. And this is where, the alarms kind of go up as an individual, right? Even if you don't understand the jargon, even if you don't understand the climate terminology, you understand this situation. And you got questions, right? And you want to kind of figure out what those questions, you want answers to those questions. You want security, you want safety, because these are lives and livelihoods that are uprooted. We see this time and time again, and it takes situations. And for me, it took repeated situations to kind of go, what are your answers to these questions that you have with regards to what do you grab? What do you take? What is paramount? And how do you build back? And how do you educate others to not only take this serious and to take precautions serious? How do you educate others to also be advocates when it comes to, promoting and supporting, policies that will help boost infrastructure, that'll help make sure the funds go through with expediency? We need that quickly. Relief needs to come quick, because again, that road home is uncertain. And so this is why I kind of came to realize, if you find yourself in situations like this through no direct impact of your own lifestyle and your choices, when you have to leave, when you have to realize what's most important to you and take those things, and not know and have no possibility of knowing what you're coming back to, if anything, that's when reality hits. And that's when you start to hopefully, like with myself, start asking questions, start educating yourself as to how do we mitigate this? How do we make this better? What am I doing wrong? What can I be doing better? How can we as a community be more resilient when these things happen? Because they're going to happen. It's nature. The climate is unpredictable. Fact. So given those facts, given that, how do we build a more resilient community? How do we educate folks so that when danger comes with regards to hurricane, which is a big risk here in many coastal communities, how do we go ahead and come up with some answers so that the uncertainty, which is very stressful, is mitigated, and we can have a plan for action, a plan for recovery, a plan for resiliency, a plan for building back better, so that we aren't faced with the same severity of impacts as we were in the past, because now we know better. And it took 3 consecutive storms for me to say, no, I know better. So my name is Chassidy. I'm a climate refugee, and that's my story.